Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Let's close out 2024 on a strong note. Joining me for a two-part extravagant finale is my colleague over at Pucks and Pitchforks, Joseph Stanislaw, aka Jersey Joe. We reflected on the 2024 calendar year for the New Jersey Devils and what we hope to see in 2025. We had a lengthy discussion once again, so I had to split it up into two parts. Part two will be published in a few hours. There's a lot to break down in part one, so buckle up, everybody. Let's close out 2024.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils writer, Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of 2024, about to head into 2025. Obviously, you want to leave some things in 2024, but there's one person who I am not leaving in 2024. It's my man, my colleague, Joseph Stanislaw, aka Jersey Joe. Who better to bring on close out 2024? Jersey Joe, I'm anticipating for this to be a two-part episode. So for everyone listening, you're spending your New Year's Eve over here at Locked On Devils. First and foremost, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see that, within one season that this team has come in a full 180, but the other part of the farm system's done the complete opposite 180. So I think there's a bit of airing of grievances on the one end, but there's a lot of celebrate with celebration. But, there's a lot that we're going to talk about on this here podcast.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to the grievances and all that, I first want to get your thoughts on the Timo Meier and Martin Necas situation, because it's been revealed that Timo Meier will not face any suspensions or anything like that. So he's completely wiped clean this time around. But obviously that caused a lot of controversy. The governor of North Carolina, he chimed in as well. I've had a few Hurricanes people slide into my comment section to express their displeasure with Timo Meier. So let me get your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm going to sound like Jerry Stiller in this one. People, and I am airing my grievances. That was terrible officiating on that part. First off, first point of contact, Timo did do shoulder to shoulder. And then as you see in the replay, that knee of Necas decides to bend towards Timo's momentum going forward, looking like a knee on knee. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to say this from the Uncle Puckers podcast, it looked like a sniper shot Necas. He was sitting there for 3.5 minutes on the ice. And so they decided to review it and they decided to kick him out. And it looked pretty rigged. I hate to say it, rigged. That's how I felt watching it. But I just felt like the Devils were cheated in that game. And the moment just swung in Carolina's favor. And then our guy, Daniel Amoya, showed on Twitter that with that same officiating crew, Carolina's 12-1-0 the past several seasons. It's kind of suspect.
Well, look, I don't want to read too far into that specific tweet, and Daniel even added on and said, well, look, Carolina is a good team anyway. It's not like they're a bottom tier team and that officiating crew helps them out. But to piggyback off some of your points, I do agree. I think the theatrics from Necas really helped the Hurricanes in that sort of aspect, because it's just he didn't miss a shift after the hit. So either he's a quick healer and a tough customer, or he just over-exaggerated it a bit.
He's a big exaggerated player in that one play. And you know what? I absolutely wish that the officiating crew took a little bit more time just to see what kind of BS he was pulling. This is why I don't watch European soccer, because there's a lot of players acting like that they got killed from a Russian sniper. So that being said, I mean, look, the Devils win more than 65% of their games, almost 75% of their games. And am I going to air out so many grievances? No, but they make up for it. But I just want Jake Allen to come back stronger and play a better game after that loss. That's not all on him, but there are certain things you can't control. But for the most part, he's been a very good backup goalie.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are a little harsh on Jake Allen right now because he's lost 4 straight games, but Sheldon Keefe even said it in his post-game press conference, which was he felt as though the team overworked Jake Allen in that specific game because he faced about 40 shots. And Markstrom faced 40 shots in a span of 2 games at one point. So it's just like I feel like they overworked Jake Allen in that case, and he's still really good in my opinion. He's meant to be a backup, and something else that a lot of people aren't talking about: Jake Allen is recovering from injury.
And I mean, he did really well last year when Devils picked him up from Montreal. Merci beaucoup, Montreal. I would
I
like to
don't speak
say
French.
thank you very much, Montreal.
Okay,
And so what I mean is like the Devils started to get their two pieces of the tandem for 2024, 2025. And one of the other things is with Jacob Markstrom. He has absolutely been money, but I'm glad that they're not overplaying Markstrom. But also, they haven't even used Nico Dawes or Isaac Poulter in net yet, but they have called them up at different times. So it's only a matter of time when the Devils do decide to use Dawes or Poulter for like when the Devils need to give their two goalies a bit of a break so that way they get ready for when they do eventually clinch a playoff spot. You don't want to overplay your two goalies.
that is correct. And here's how it would work because the roster is going to expand come playoff time.
Yep.
So they're most likely going to carry 3 goalies anyway. 2 will dress, 1 will be a healthy scratch. A couple seasons ago, it was Akira Schmidt and Vitek Vanecek. They were the 2 goalies who dressed, and Mackenzie Blackwood, ironically, because I think he's the better goalie of those 2 now. He was a healthy scratch during the playoffs. And did you see Mackenzie Blackwood's contract with the
I am a little suspect about that payday. Here's the thing, like with New Jersey, like he was not managed well injury wise and health wise. And then from what I heard, he was a bit of a clubhouse cancer. From what I heard from a couple season ticket holders.
well, look. This is I'm not trying to like diminish anyone or anyone's opinion. I'm actually in the locker room at times. I haven't gotten that sort of gauge that Mackenzie Blackwood was a clubhouse cancer. If anything, he was very at least he was respectable to me. Like I never had an issue with him.
Right. But like I would watch uh, interviews and he looked like he was just too fed up at times, and I could see that. He may come up as that way, but I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying what I heard from people who had season tickets who got to meet him at meet and greets and stuff. So I'm just citing what I heard, but just going with the interviews, he doesn't look like one, but you just don't know at times. But he's a really darn good goalie when he does not play in New Jersey. For some reason, him and Wedgwood play better outside of the Metropolitan. They find that they do much better in a lesser crazy market outside of New Jersey and the Metropolitan. I guess maybe it's the atmosphere that they're in, but the Devils found their goalie tandem that fits in the Metropolitan, who have higher expectations of themselves to perform.
I mean, I don't know why they did struggle when they were with the Devils. I think for Mackenzie Blackwood, he just hit a wall, and that can take a strain on you mentally. in my opinion, because just like it was wash, rinse, repeat with Mackenzie Blackwood. He would get off to a pretty decent start, get derailed with injuries, finish the season on a sour note. Off season, we anticipate big things from Blackwood, but again, it's the same thing. So that's my perspective on Mackenzie Blackwood. I think he just ran into a mental hurdle that he couldn't overcome while in New Jersey, and getting a fresh change of scenery can really do wonders for you. Now, I think he deserved a little better than the San Jose Sharks, so I'm glad
Yeah, he
that he's
did.
I am glad he is with a playoff caliber team once again in the Avalanche. But that contract, I'll just
I
say,
actually
good.
took him on my fantasy team recently.
You took him on your fantasy team?
Yeah, I took him on my fantasy team, and just recent when he right before he got traded.
Well, hopefully that's a good investment for you. But I will just say this: in terms of his contract, good for him. I think he deserves it, because like he's been derailed due to injuries and certain circumstances that he couldn't control. He was given the Corey Schneider treatment while
Yeah.
he was in New Jersey. So good for Mackenzie Blackwood. I'm happy for him. Before we continue with today's episode alongside Jersey Joe, let me tell you guys about Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even know I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon once again. All right, let's get back to our discussion with Jersey Joe to close out 2024. Take it away once again.
But you know what? I mean, speaking of goalies, one of my favorite highlights from 2024, before the 24-25 season commenced, you were there for this event. My guy who I scouted when I was with Draft Pro was Mikhail Yegorov from the Omaha Lancers. And there's another kid on that team this year who's given him half the playing time now, named Cam Hendrickson. And Yegorov is doing far better statistically with his goals allowed average and getting more saves and save percentage. So they're splitting workload, and he's just going to go to Boston University. The Devils don't even have to rush this guy. They just, will let him sit there for a couple years while you have Poulter. You have VT Luhivarda, who's like, I think, right below the Finnish Liga or just at Liga. And he's going to take just a little long, but that's okay, because anytime with goalies, you don't need to rush them. They take different learning curves. Just like when you're a student in school, you take a little bit longer to adapt your skills to different things that you need to apply to in life at your job. So the Devils are pretty much set for the time being. Tyler Brennan, I don't think he's going to stay in the organization, but I think he's going to find a better job outside of the Devils, because he's getting goalied outside of the depth chart, because you already have Dawes and Poulter who are already there, and Yegorov and Luhivarda are going to take. So I think the Devils are doing rather good for that goalie depth chart. And I think it's when it comes to trading a guy away in a package, Brennan might be in one of those for one of those bottom tier teams that need a goalie for their AHL team that they could call up.
And Uh, here's something that you might like. The director of media operations of the Omaha Lancers, he recently followed me on social media, so maybe I could get Yegorov on this show. There is nothing in the works. Let me just make that perfectly clear. Just pitching an idea on this show because, like I said, 2024. We're at the end. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so 2024, it was a roller coaster, I would say.
Yeah.
Lowest of lows, off season brought some hope, and towards the end of it, everything is coming to fruition. Seems like the Devils are on a great roll. Knock on wood. Haven't dealt with any major injuries. Nothing seems to be going wrong. Camaraderie, chemistry seems to be there. Everyone is bought into Sheldon Keefe's system. When you just reflect on 2024 in general, like let's go back to January to now, just give me your thoughts on it.
So last January, I would say like that they sold off a little bit, but they kept their core. And so they didn't do too much after that. Like they moved on from the older contracts that just didn't fit in. And I'm glad that they brought in guys like Brendan Dillon in the offseason, and they added a couple other pieces like Jonathan Kovacevic to shore up the defense, and Dougie Hamilton came back. So that means like I always tell people
From injury,
like,
guys, from injury, just to make that clear.
right now, so like a couple guys come back. That's like having an addition without having subtraction. So Brett Pesce, to me, like I really didn't expect him to come to New Jersey, but him making it public, and then I heard a couple of people saying Brett Pesce to New Jersey, and our guy Jim was telling me at the time that there's no other way out. He's going to New Jersey. It's just a matter of time.
Yep.
And for me, like seeing Luke Hughes struggle defensively, and me seeing Brett Pesce uh, this season alone has helped Luke Hughes's defensive career. Did you see how many times, not just against the Rangers, but against Carolina, how many times he actually threw a couple of hip checks and poked the puck away?
Luke's defense has been incredible, and I even asked Sheldon Keefe about it. It's phenomenal.
He's starting to look like that two-way player that I wanted. When Luke Hughes was in his draft year, one of the first things that I saw in his skating game was a hybrid of Scott Niedermayer with the agility and the acceleration and the ability to play offense. But I knew with his stick handling, he could be a phenomenal two-way player. With that being said, coming out of Michigan, nothing against the Wolverines, he was straight up pure offense. I didn't get to see that much defense. This is why I love Brett Pesce being around him, because he makes him be more responsible and he holds him accountable. So he has the will to win. It's just a matter of getting that rounded. And he's been rounding it up big time. So he's starting to look like that Quinn Hughes, Scott Niedermayer hybrid. That's what Luke Hughes is turning into at these early stages. He's not even in his prime yet, let that alone.
No, he's not. And he's just in his second full year in the league. And he was a Calder finalist last season. Obviously, that was going to go to Connor Bedard. No debate there. But I think one of the biggest issues that people had with Luke Hughes coming out of college, and I think this is one of the main issues he had, was that he got a little too jumpy on defense, which put him out of position. And not only that, I think we saw this with him and his brother last year. They coughed up the puck way too much.
So like goalies, they call it happy feet when you're getting too movie left, right. But with defensemen, he has too much of a what I call happy hands, because he's dangling too much, playing it way too often. He's starting to learn how to be a little bit more conservative, playing with a guy like Brett Pesce. But there are times where it becomes a bit too habitual, where teams start to put an X on that player. So that's just something that both Jack and Luke need to cut down on the happy hands.
You're right.
So that's just something that I want to air out a little bit on those guys. So maybe they follow up on that.
I do agree. All right. Who was your favorite offseason addition?
Favorite off-season addition? Definitely, I'm going to go with Jonathan Kovacevic. For me, like, we needed another right-handed defenseman, big boy, block shots, play physical, not afraid to be a big presence. And he was more underrated, and like the Devils gave up, I think, a third-round pick or something.
Fourth round.
And he's well worth the price of admission. And the Devils, they already had Hamilton. They had Shimon Nemes just in case something goes down. And they already had Seamus Casey playing a little bit. I just think that if you extend a guy like Kovacevic by 2 to 4 years, you don't have to rush Nemec or Casey. Let them play better defensively. Let them fill out a little bit more. One thing I need Nemec to do is to be a little bit better in place, positioning-wise, and just needs to shoot the puck more frequently.
I think for Kovacevic, I called it. I called it back in July. People were underestimating him because they were so busy focusing on, Brett Pesce, Stefan Nason, Brendan Dillon. With all due respect, yes, those are the bigger names that the Devils acquired during the offseason. But I said, don't sleep on Jonathan Kovacevic because Fitzy got him right before free agency occurred. Like, he made the trade with Montreal Canadiens like the day before free agency officially opened. And I said, Kovacevic, he's not bad, actually. He's actually really good. And I want people to remember that because when he was with the Habs last season, he had a defensive point share rating of 2.7. That was first on the team. A plus 11, plus minus, first on the Habs. 83 blocks, fifth. Point shares rating, 3.3, eighth. 75 hits, eighth. Underrated get for Fitzy. He's actually really good.
So I was talking with fellow Pucks and Pitchforks writer Jack Schiller recently in a text. I said, if the Devils look at the Habs for guys that can do really well in the hits and block shots department, Jaden Struble and then Arbor Jacki would be some interesting players. And then I get the guys in the Pucks and Pitchforks DMs, and they're like, Arbor Jacki, are you nuts? And I said, well, I'm not nuts because we don't need more Flash. We need more Sasquatch. We need to make sure when the Devils go into the playoffs that we can hold other teams accountable defensively and be able to man up. You can't just have a Luke Hughes and let's say a Brett Pesce. You need to have the more gritty guys that get you over the hump. Who would you rather have in the defensive zone? Someone like Arbor Jacki and Jaden Struble? Or would you rather have some other guy that is not that very physical come playoff time?
I think Jacki can definitely provide some physicality.
And his brother Florian, who's a forward, is definitely another similar player, but on the forward side. And I actually wanted him a few seasons ago. So I just love the will and tenacity of the Jacki family. But if Fitzgerald does look for, like I said before, Alex Tuck would be a good get. Versatile guy, but do you think a Buffalo native would want to leave Buffalo? I doubt it. But he'd be an underrated get for a forward, center, winger. But Dylan Cousins, to me, is young enough, old enough for this team. Would be a great center addition. Wins about 49% of faceoffs in Buffalo, and is one of the best faceoff winners in the Sabres organization. So I think the Devils should explore Dylan Cousins. Also, he has a much better shot than a couple of our bottom centers. So I would absolutely be happy if the Devils explored a trade with the Buffalo Sabres.
The Buffalo Sabres. Well, they're starting to get their act together a little bit. They're not going to make any noise, but
No.
they've improved a little bit.
It's still a little rough, may I say that, but I like the way that the Devils starting to get guys like Stefan Nason starting to roll again, and he's been a huge addition on the power play.
I think Nason's been rolling all year long. I don't think there was ever a point in which he was slowing down. It's just like if he's not getting goals, whether it's even strength or power play, he's providing physicality. And he even told me like he doesn't have much flash, but he's meant to add more toughness to the Nico Hischier line.
Yeah, he's been a very dynamic Sasquatch of a guy, and that's what the Devils needed. Is they needed that big physical upbringing that gets everyone together. And I don't know how long Nathan Bastian is going to be around, but like Devils need to add another guy that's going to stick a little bit better on the bottom six pairing. And I think they're onto something. It'd just be like if they got their Ryan Carter, Steven Gianta, Steve Bernier combo, that type thing. They need that for the next phase of 2025 for when they do clinch a playoff spot. So they need to have a crash line or something.
I mean, I think I talked about it in my more recent episode. I think the biggest issue for their bottom six is that they go lengthy streaks without scoring. Because Paul Cotter, he recently scored against the Hurricanes, but you would have to go back to November 12th, the last time he found the back of the net prior to the Hurricanes matchup. Or for Eric Haula, he hasn't scored a goal since November 25th. Let's see who else. Tomas Tatar, he hasn't really been the same player that he was a couple years ago, but then again, he's not playing alongside Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer. Speaking of which, Mercer racking up the points a little bit, and he's trying to find some more consistency, but even Fitzy said, like, sometimes it doesn't really come all that in bunches, and I think the big thing for the Devils is that they need more bottom six scoring. Now, let me make something perfectly clear. I'm not saying that Paul Cotter and Eric Haula are bad because their scoring is a bonus.
Yeah.
Their jobs are to be physical and do the dirty work. Eric Haula do face-offs, things like that. But you can't go lengthy streaks without scoring and getting into the scoring column, like getting an assist or something. And I spoke to Chico Resch about this because he says the issue about not having offense and just doing a lot of physical tactics, that's easy to replace, especially for some of them who are making the money that they are.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be guys like that are a bit overevaluated. And I think Tom Fitzgerald knows how to look at it in between the lines. It's a matter of fact, you look at Dawson Mercer, he's starting to come back a little bit, but is he trying to build his trade value? Maybe.
That's my thing, which is is Dawson Mercer now the new Alexander Holtz, where he's going to be brought up in a lot of trade discussions?
I don't think he's going to be at that level. I think he's going to be more quiet in that way. Point is that he's a really good takeaway guy. He does a lot of block shots, but he gets to the dirty areas. And if the Devils do trade him, I wouldn't be surprised a few years later they get him back and he becomes like that Jason Arnott guy because he can score that timely goal that's clutch. Doesn't score as often as you think, but definitely like his two-way game makes things more doable for Devils creating those game-winning drives. So my point being is that other teams will need a more defensive-minded player, the Devils will say, we need a more sniper-minded player. So that's going to be something that they're going to do. Question is, do you think Lindy Ruff would do better with him?
Uh,
I think he could.
I don't really know, honestly. I don't know what to make of Lindy Ruff anymore. Because on the one hand, Sabres aren't doing good, but on the other hand, the last time they made the playoffs, Lindy Ruff was behind the bench. That was like, what, 2011?
Just about. I mean, that was the year before the Devils, after their long streak with, I think, Jacques Lemaire. They missed the playoffs by X amount of games. But that being said, like, I think Dawson Mercer could be in a trade with someone like for a Dylan Cousins type player. It's just like you look at the contract of someone like him, like Cousins, it's like about 4 million. So like you're trading Mercer's contract, you're prorating that for about like 3 million, pretty much. So and that goes against the cap plus player's contract for like 7 million gets prorated throughout the season. So it's not going to be as hard to deal with, but the next season, like the Devils will have to pay that like 7 million. So I think with the cap going up by 5%, the Devils could get away with one of those bigger contracts.
We'll see what happens, but
We don't have to worry about another big Timo Meyer payment
no.
or
Luke
in
Hughes.
another trade, but we already got our Timo.
Right. But I'm just saying, Luke Hughes, he's going to need a new contract.
My guess is he's going to get about, let's see, 4 years, 5.5 million easily. But if you're going to give him 8 years, give him about 8 million per. So I'm looking in between an annual average of 6.75 million. Annual average is my guess at this time. But I think he's going to get paid more in bonuses and signing bonuses.
Well, we'll see what happens, but I'm just saying, like, Devils aren't out of the woods yet when it comes to finances, and this is why I miss Cap Friendly.
Well, you got Puckpedia. I know it's not the same, but they have all that there too.
I know, but it's not as up to date.
Yeah, and this is why I'm not a fan of the Capitals, because they decide to buy a certain asset that you and I all love and deal with every day.
Right. So this is why I hate I hate that the Capitals bought Cap Friendly just to make the site go dark like a few months later.
Yeah, it's just not cool. I mean, the things that the Devils have done is that they've created their own like Cap Friendly before it went dark, so they have their own little system, and every other team pretty much did. So they look to do really good asset management. Now, with that being said, I mean, the Devils will make 1 or 2 trades this year, and I don't foresee them doing too many big ones, but like like I said, they're going to look at like maybe an Alex Tuck or the Dylan Cousins type move, but they might go to Montreal again and probably go for the Jack Eye player who's more underrated but still fairly young and fairly cheap. And you don't really need a superstar on your back end because we already have our superstars. We already got our core pieces. The Devils don't need to overdo it.
No. And for anyone who says that the Devils could still get Brady Tkachuk, why are we still doing this?
I find it very hard to believe at this time. And if they do, it's because he wants out of Ottawa.
He wants out of Ottawa.
But I don't see the Devils paying that much.
But the problem is he has a few years left on his contract. So you get him for, I think, this season and 2 more seasons after. So you're going to be at the Senators' mercy.
And the Senators going to ask for not just a couple arms and legs, but a couple of houses and mansions.
Yes. That's what people fail to realize. And then they try to perpetrate these narratives saying like, Yeah, his wife is from New Jersey. He probably won't, and yes, they're cousins with Fitzgerald. I'm just like, okay, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence, but doesn't mean he's heading to New Jersey. All signs don't point to there.
Yeah, well, maybe in a few seasons, but not now.
Few seasons, but definitely not now. It's funny. I guess I could share this story now. I was at the Sheldon Keefe press conference, and I asked Ryan Novozinski, who covers the New York Giants now. I asked him, hey Ryan, how come you didn't write an article about Brady Kachuk? And he just looked at me. He was like, Trey, there is no smoke to that at all. Of course, he said it in a joking manner, but he just said like, there's no smoke to it.
Yeah, if there was smoke, there is fire, but I don't really buy into that whole Brady Kachuk thing. I mean, maybe in a few years when uh, ownership and management get very fed up with Brady in his like last year under his contract, then maybe there's a trade. But I remember when Jim Berger told me this about Taylor Hall. I said the Colorado Avalanche were interested in getting Taylor Hall at the time, but because of the less than 1 year on his contract, that ratio didn't extend him. That hurt his value. And that's why when the time came for Arizona to swoop in on the deal, that this is why we end up getting Kevin Ball and a couple other pieces.
Well, they got a draft pick that ended up becoming Dawson Mercer.
Dawson Mercer, yep. And so whenever I wear the Taylor Hall Devils jersey to a game, I always tell people I'm wearing Dawson Mercer, Kevin Ball, and all those other assets without buying another jersey. So I always make that reference every time I think of that trade tree.
I think it worked out in the end. And Taylor Hall, he's kind of been bouncing around from team to team.
And he's not the same exact player. I mean, he's just there in Chicago to help try and build Bedard's line. But with that being said, I mean, the Devils got someone from Chicago and Jeremy Colleton as their offensive guy who does the power play, and the Devils are really benefiting from Jeremy Colleton. So personnel changes, I mean, with the past year, has grown this team exponentially.
Absolutely. Now,
and they're not stagnant.
Nope, they're moving in the right direction. And we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for listening to part 1 of my discussion with Jersey Joe. Part 2 will be published in a few hours, so stick around for that. Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Hope you guys enjoy it with your family and friends. But to close out today's episode, continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. Jersey Joe and I will see you in part 2. Stick around.